Hello, everybody. So I saw a couple of interviews and I've been reading a lot of reports concerning Palantir. So I just want to talk to you and relax a little bit. Let's just see what the heck is going on. Palantir has had an awesome week. We're up, up, up. This is good. Bank of America comes out and there's an interview yesterday. I read you the article and they said a couple of very interesting things during the interview. First, they said that spending, U.S. government spending, will be $850 billion at the end of this year and $1 trillion at the end of 2026. A very, very much increasing budget for defense. They then went on to say that Palantir is poised as a defense contractor to get a lot of money with what's happening in the geopolitical situation right now. They mentioned that a lot of analysts are not analyzing Palantir as an actual defense contractor, as a defense supplier to the United States military. And because of that, valuing them at $9 barely includes their government business for defense. So essentially, it is massively undervalued, and that's why they gave it a price of $13 a share. 1/3 of Palantir's business is commercial. 2/3 of Palantir's business is government. Half of the 2/3 or 1/3 of the business is for government defensive contract. The government defensive contracts are going to grow at a massive pace very soon. We see that they're growing. We see the geopolitical unrest, and we see not only within our borders, but also abroad, we will be getting a lot of contracts from the United States, European Union, NATO, and United Kingdoms, just to name a few. Bank of America also said that they hear that Palantir is able to get into a lot more government agencies and get a lot more government contracts within the United States, not just from this defensive contracts, not just from these military contracts. And they said not only are they bringing their software, but they're able to fabricate and mesh with existing software of other companies, so they're able to get more and more contracts. They said some very, very cool things about Palantir, and that's one of the reasons why Palantir is underrated. Earlier today, I read an article from Seeking Alpha, and they said that there's short interest of Palantir, and that short interest went down by 19%. The short interest was around 6.5% of the float of all available shares of Palantir, or approximately 106 million off the top of my dome. So that was reduced by 19%. So we probably took around 20 million shares of short interest off the market against Palantir. There's only a few reasons why short interest would be removed from a company or why short interest would be reduced from a company. One, they just brought the shares so low that they don't think that it's going to go any lower, so they don't want to lose their money. That's one. I'll take it because we bottomed out. Or two, they don't want to fight the positive sentiment of the company. Shorts have to fight longs. If there's more interest and more demand to buy shares, well, then the shorts get liquidated. And if there's less interest and they can bring the price down, well, longs get liquidated. So if the short interest gets reduced one way or the other, we're probably at a bottom when it comes to Palantir, which might be a good opportunity for people to buy if you were not taking advantage of the dip this entire time. I'm not telling you to buy, and I'm not saying that Palantir is not going to go any lower. I'm also not saying that it is possible Palantir is going to thrive during this recession, especially if a lot of these government contracts are going to be announced, which I think there will be government contracts announced Q3, Q4, and especially Q1 of 2023, because it takes time to close up a lot of these government contracts. Last time Palantir was talking, they said, listen, just because someone's not signing on the dotted line will not mean that we're not going to give them support, does not mean that we're not going to be helping them. And he was talking about what was happening currently in Ukraine. Palantir, is it a company that can thrive in the recession? I mean, really thrive in the recession. I mean, Palantir is a growth stock, isn't it? And growth stocks don't make any money. And growth stocks needs to borrow money in order to grow. And growth stocks have no money on hand. That's why they're called a growth stock. Well, Palantir is a little different. They are most certainly a growth stock, but they're a growth stock that was in business for nearly 20 years before they went public. And their business was subsidized by a little organization called the CIA. They do have a finance wing. So all of their R&D, research and development, a lot of their R&D, research and development was paid for by the government. Right now, when they're going to be getting new government contracts, a lot of their R&D is going to be paid for as well. And what happens when they research and develop new techniques and new technology for their government contracts. They use it in their commercial spending, in their commercial contracts. So they pretty much get free research and development. Back to Palantir being a growth stock. So how can Palantir actually thrive in this economy? How can it thrive being a growth stock if it needs money? I mean, when you borrow money and interest rates go up to curb inflation, that means your cost of borrowing money goes up and your bottom line suffers because you have to pay back more money. And your profit margins are squeezed, right? Because debt is an expense. Palantir is different. Palantir has $2.3 billion of cash on hand. $2.3 billion of cash on hand, and they have a $500 million line of credit, revolving line of credit that they pulled out a massive $0 from. Why? Palantir actually makes money. They went from negative cash flow to positive cash flow. They went from like negative 300 something million, and within a year, they have positive 400 million or so, plus or minus. That is a massive feat that a lot of people are not giving them credit for. Let me say, when I say a lot of people, I don't mean the Palantir community because we know what's up, but a lot of people from the outside in, they don't bother to take a look at that. They're looking at the macro, some numbers, but they don't really know the soul of Palantir. They don't know, as Ahmed likes to say, their poetic heart, right? Their poetic being of Palantir. What does this Palantir have? Over $1 billion of contracts that are coming in, already accounts receivable. If they don't get any more contracts at all, they can survive for the next 2 years. So, if analysts are not paying attention to Palantir, most analysts, and they're super undervalued because most analysts are not taking into account the massive government defensive spending that's about to come into Palantir. If most of Wall Street is just mad that Palantir is losing government contracts but gaining commercial contracts, what's going to happen when they blow up and get the government contracts? Possibly hedge funds like ARK Invest that left Palantir because they said that they're not growing their government sector, there's too much competition, and they're not the only game in town, which is pretty stupid if you ask me, but I'm not a hedge fund, right? Short interest is going down, so the sentiment against Palantir is getting reduced, and the sentiment for Palantir is going up. That's the only reason why short interest would be reduced so much. And Palantir has no debt. They don't need to borrow any money, and they can sustain themselves for the next couple of years going forward. And if they can sustain themselves and they have no debt, and on top of that, they have something called a revolving line of credit where they can borrow money at any point in time. And plus now they have a lot of eyes and they have a lot of ears on them because people are starting to understand exactly what Palantir does because Palantir is starting to cater to the community, the Palantir community, so that people can understand exactly what they do. Because to be honest, it's very difficult to understand what Palantir does. But just to make it very simple, they make a digital twin of your company, of your program, of your department, and they allow you to do something called ontology, which allows you to take data from different points of the digital twin, put it in, move it here, move it that, and figure out what the heck is going on and make you as least efficient as possible, therefore making you more efficient and more productive. While they do that, they also take raw data, analyze this, and give you process data that you can actually use. And they're not just a one-layer solution. They are a full layer, an entire enterprise solution for your problems. With everything that I just said and sentiment going up, I think Palantir is a great buy for the long term. If we're at the bottom now or not at the bottom, this I cannot tell you. If we're going to go back down to that $7 mark or maybe even $3, I also cannot tell you. What I could tell you for everything that I said today, I am super bullish about Palantir, and it seems like the market is turning a little bit on Palantir. If the market is going to stop viewing Palantir as just a software company, but as a defensive company, as a defensive company, as possibly the defensive software company for the United States military and her allies, then I believe a lot of people are going to start understanding that Palantir is here to stay, not only today, but tomorrow and for a very, very long time ahead. There's a lot of doors that will start opening up for Palantir as more and more agencies are going to understand it's very difficult to do what they're supposed to do without Palantir. They need Palantir's data analytic capabilities in order to be able to be so much more efficient, and they need to be so much more efficient in today's geopolitical turmoil and bottlenecking due to COVID. Let's be honest, everything sucks. And if you have the company that can make things a little better, why not use them? And once you use them, once you use Palantir, why would you use somebody else if Palantir makes you so much more efficient? Now, if you are Palantir and everybody is coming to you because you have the goods, guess what? You're going to make a lot of money. And guess what? A lot of people that own Palantir who are buying on these low lows are going to make a lot of money on the run-up of the share prices. Guys, I'm not a financial advisor, purely entertainment and educational purposes. This is all my opinion, and I like to be a theoretical investor to look at the big picture and try to connect the dots. And for me, I'm drawing out this picture, and it's starting to look oh so lovely. Thank you.